Welcome to Side Project. I am Joe Tannenbaum, and today we have John Bonaccorsi with us, which I am very excited about. John, a pleasure to meet you. Do you want to tell us a little about yourself before we get started, just so we have some context?
Yeah, sure thing. Joe, thanks for having me here.
Of course.
Yeah, as you said, my name is John Bonaccorsi. I live right outside of Philadelphia in New Jersey with my wife, my son. I have another son coming up in August. If anyone listening to the podcast has ever heard of my name, it was probably from my time working at Titan, which is a Laravel agency. I was a lead programmer there for 6 years. I now work at another company called BizNow, also doing a lot of deep Laravel work. And in my free time, I do some woodworking, some pizza making, and a lot of watching TV.
Okay. Wait, so pizza making, what are we making? What's the staple? What is the standard issue pizza in your household? Or is it all experimental?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm really working on these days, well, and with 2 kids almost, I barely have any time for this, but prior to having kids, when I was kind of doing this more often, I was really focusing on the dough. So, like playing with the hydration levels, the fermentation time, kind of
getting serious about it. Getting legit with it. Yeah,
exactly. I was worried less about, it was usually just making plain pies, which is my favorite kind of pie anyway. But but that's what I was kind of working on. And I got a little sidetracked when my kids were born, but I'm hoping to get back to it deeper one day soon.
I mean, it does come down to the dough, right? Like, is everything else, like, you could play with the sauce, you can make it sweeter, not as sweet, something like that. But like, it does come down to the dough at the end of the day. It's like, what does that crust taste like? What does the base taste like? And I think are you going like thick, thin, medium?
I like a thin pie. I like a really thin pie. I like a long fermentation period. Like you have 3-day fermentation. That's really wonderful.
Wow. That's legit.
That's my favorite. I just like, you're right. It is all about the dough at the end of the day, but so I like to spend time on that and, even just making breads or whatever. Again, hoping to get more into that in the future when I have a little more free time, but it's definitely a passion too.
Awesome. Okay, so you posted something that caught my eye and I was like, this is critical that we talk about this because for several reasons.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about this on any level, and so all I want you to do is talk and tell me. So You posted that you run this, I guess you would call it a side project, called FantasyBB.com,
That's right.
which is a fantasy Big Brother league. Is that correct? Okay. And you just hit EK users on this side project?
Yeah, so this is an interesting side project because it's, and this will change soon, but it's a seasonal side project. So it only runs currently, and this is about to change, but currently, historically, it's only run in the summer. So we kind of have like 3 months where we're gaining users, and then we get nothing for 9 months. And so last summer, 2024, we ended the year with a little over 50,000 users. It might have been like 51,000, but yeah, roughly 50,000.
And how long has the site been around?
The site has been around since it launched in 2018. And the first year we got about 300 users.
Okay.
It was a small start. And then in subsequent years, we've kind of averaged, maybe year 2 was like 5,000. Year 3 was 8. And these days we tend to average about 10,000 new users every summer when we launch, typically speaking.
Wow. Okay. I have 100 questions and 1 observation.
Sure.
I didn't know Big Brother was still on, I'm going to be honest. So this has been running forever. This show has been running for so long then.
Yeah. So, if anyone is listening right now is not familiar with what Big Brother is, because a lot of people probably have either never heard of it.
It's me.
Or
me.
They've heard
I don't know even how it works.
Yeah. So they've probably never even heard of it, or they've heard of it and they're like, wait, didn't that get canceled like 20 years ago? Like, who's watching that? And like, the answer is me. I'm watching it.
Clearly well over 50,000 people because I guarantee everybody's, Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Big Brother is about to head into its 27th this year, which is actually, which sounds like a lot, but then actually Survivor, which is another TV show, is on season 49, I think.
Right.
So Big Brother is only yearly. I think Survivor does multi-years.
It's still impressive, regardless of how you slice that. It's very impressive to keep a TV show on that long.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I know we're talking about Big Brother, and a lot of people have probably not heard of it or barely whatever. But if anyone is unaware of what it is, Big Brother is a TV show. It's a reality TV show. It launched in, I believe it was 2000 for season 1.
Okay.
It is essentially, most people are probably a little bit familiar with Survivor, where like there's a group of people on an island and each week someone gets, eliminated from the island or something like that. Big Brother is very, very similar to Survivor, except instead of it being on an island, it's in a house. And the people are locked in there for 3 months straight. And there's like live feeds that you can watch like from your house at any time you want. So you can directly watch these people live for 3 months straight if you'd like. And it's about to head into its 27th season. Every week people get nominated, they get voted out, and at the end there's one winner at the end of the summer, and it basically airs every single summer. So if anyone's not familiar with what Big Brother is, that's what it is.
And they cannot leave the house for 3 months?
They do not leave the house at all I mean, if they get evicted, then they leave and they go home.
Well, yeah, sure.
But yeah, otherwise, if you're in the game, I mean, there's some people who have spent like hundreds of days in that house across like multiple seasons. So yeah, you cannot leave.
And this doesn't even have to do with the side project, but I'm just curious, like, what's the food situation? They get food delivered to them, like groceries and stuff?
Boy, yeah, you're touching on something interesting here.
Or it's like they're farming inside the house, like it's agriculture. Like, what are we doing here?
Sometimes. So there was a season with a pig in it. So they did have a pig one time. But so historically, so food is basically, earlier Big Brother, they used to have these things called food competitions where they would have to earn, like through games, the food that they could eat for the week. So like they'd be like, okay, we have a competition and we can either get, meats or vegetables or fruits or whatever, right? But we can only get like 2 of them instead. So we have to decide what do we want as a house. And then there's this concept of like people who are what they call have-nots, which is essentially back in the day, it was that they could only eat peanut butter and jelly for the whole week. But now it's become in the modern iteration, it's this thing called slop, where they basically have to eat this like disgusting, gooey oatmeal type of situation. They have to eat that for an entire week. So yeah, they do. If you're not a have-not, you get like probably all the food that you want delivered to you in the house. Like the production will bring it to them through the refrigerator or whatever. But otherwise, you might be eating some disgusting like oatmeal type goop, gross stuff.
Okay, I guess like, wow, waivers go a long way, because that's like, how is that legal? But also, how do you, okay, we won't dive too deep into this, but how do you become a have-not? Like, how does that arise? Or are you opting into that? What are you doing?
So sometimes, yeah, again, this is like, Big Brother's been on for 27 years, so like things have changed over the years. Earlier on, There was sometimes competitions where if you lost a competition, you were a have-not for the week. In recent years, it's been mostly like volunteer basis for most of the time. So sometimes people will just volunteer. It's almost like a way, if you think about it, like it's a social game, right? So if you kind of take a hit for the team and you go on this disgusting diet for a week, you're kind of hedging a bet, like from a social standpoint, are people going to be a little bit less likely to target me because I'm taking this hit for the team? So it's all a little bit of a Big Brother, if you think about it, it's really like a mental social chess game in like real life. So every decision you make, you're trying to build up your social standing, you're trying to gain power through competitions. It's a really interesting show, and I just kind of attribute it to like mental chess or social chess, basically.
Fascinating. Okay, so you're clearly a Big Brother fan. You've probably been watching it for a long time. And since you were 10? Mm-hmm. Okay. And so how did this come about? How did FantasyBB come about? Like, what was the seed of the idea?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to do a little story here. Try not to make it too long to because I think the background is interesting. I'm always curious to see like, how do people come up with their side projects? So yeah, I've been watching Big Brother since I was actually probably 9 when it came out, because I was 9 for the beginning of summer in 2000. So I'm 9 years old. Big Brother comes out. I'm a fan. I've been watching it from season 1 all the way back then till now. And what happens is after I graduate from college, I get a job in a web development agency in Philadelphia, in the Fishtown, Philadelphia. And it's like a very small company. It's like 12 people, and it's mostly younger guys. So it's like typically like at the time I'm like 21 years old because I just graduated from college. But the other people there are like guys who are anywhere from like 25 to their early 30s. So it's a group of like younger guys.
Right.
And it's like typical guys at this company, So these guys, like, there's a kegerator in the office. It's
one of those. Okay.
You know the deal, right?
That says it all right there. Yeah.
There's a pool table. A lot of these guys played like golf in high school, or they played baseball or something like that. And so I come in, and I don't drink. I've never watched a football game in my life.
Okay.
I'm just like not in this mold at all. I like watching Bridgerton on Netflix. I'm not doing the typical guy stuff, which is totally fine on both ends. Like, it's cool for them, it's cool for me, it's whatever. But at this young age, I'm realizing like, wow, I'm at risk of kind of like falling out of the collective group here, because I can't bond with them on anything. They're going out for drinks after work. I don't drink. I don't watch the games. I don't do any of it. So I'm kind of like sitting there and like, I got to make sure I don't fall out of this group, that I don't socially isolate myself because I don't have any shared interests. And so shortly into my first year there, they kind of send around an email that they're doing a fantasy football league. And I'm like, well, I don't literally never watched a football game in my life. I don't know the rules of football. I don't know what this is, but I know this is something I can do from my computer with the team. Right. So I'm like, okay,
like, check.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't have to leave my house. I don't have to actually do anything. So I can sit with them and do this. So we do the fantasy football draft for that year. I don't know who I'm drafting, but I'm just kind of picking people that look tough or whatever. I don't know anything,
You look tough. You're on my team.
And they all look tough.
Honestly, same boat. I don't know anything about sports, so I'd be doing the same thing.
Yeah, so I do that, and the league goes through the year, and I probably finish, I think, like second. I'm second to last. Like I'm terrible. It's all bad. But the interesting thing that happens is I have a lot of fun with it, like in a way that I'm not expecting. Like it's just the camaraderie is fun. It's fun going on and checking the points every week. It's fun like trading players, and again, even though I'm not into football at all, and I wasn't expecting it to be an enjoyable experience, I just come out of it. I'm like, wow, that was fun.
That's
And
awesome.
so, yeah, and so that gets my gears turning at the time. And I'm like, imagine if something like this existed for something that I actually cared about. Like, wouldn't
There we
that be
go.
even better if I could do that? And so then I think about, okay, what are the things in my life that are kind of correlated to like football, like kind of a sportsy type thing, or something that I'm interested in? And I immediately go to Big Brother. I'm like, oh, I watch this every year. Just like football, it's like seasonal, comes out for a couple months. There's, things, people win things, they lose game, whatever, all that kind of thing.
Right.
It's similar to a sport in a certain sense. And I kind of go, interesting. I wonder if this exists. Oh, I Google it. And I go like, okay, like Big Brother Fantasy League. And this is in probably like 2012, 2013, whatever. And I try to find something. And there's some stuff out there. There's a lot of people I notice on Reddit who are doing like Google Sheets, custom things where they're
Right.
like
Like janky versions of it. Yeah.
super janky. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And there's people who are doing it with them, like strangers, and they're having fun with them. I'm like, okay, that's not really what I'm looking for. There's also some other apps out there that seem to be doing like more general kind of abstracted fantasy stuff. There's one out there called Fantasizer, I think is still a thing. And I'm like, okay, like I open it, it's an app, and I'm not going to talk poorly about it. Like I'm sure it's fine for a lot of different use cases. But as I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is a game that ideally, if I'm going to be playing like this version of fantasy football, basically, it's got to be something that my mom can also use, right? Like
Right.
it's got to be something, because this is something I'm gonna be playing with my family, not my friends. It's not like my football buddies, right? This is gonna be something I'm playing with my mom and my dad and my sister.
And also the demographic that watches is probably extremely wide. Like it's like young and old, like everybody. It's got to be like across the board, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably like 10 to like 80-year-old, like, and as old as you can be, right? So it's like
Everybody. It's
everybody.
everybody.
Yeah, so I'm looking at
Yeah.
these other apps, and I'm like, my mom could never use this, and I'm not trying to pick on moms in general. Like, my mom just is not technologically savvy, and she would be the first to admit it, right? And so
For sure. Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, like none of these things are really fitting. And then, this is just at the time. So anyway, so I get this idea, and I sit with it for a couple of years, because the truth is I just don't have the technological experience to build it. Like I have the idea, but it's 2012. I just graduated. I was mostly doing Drupal and WordPress PHP development.
Yep.
Like I've never built an app before. I don't think Laravel's even out yet at that point.
Barely. I can't remember.
If
Yeah.
it probably was barely a thing at that point. And so I just kind of sit with the idea for that time. And then, 2014, Laravel, I don't know what year Laravel technically got released. I get into Laravel around 4.2, 4.1 area. And
Yeah.
that's like, it's like towards the beginning of 2014, end of 2013, when I start getting into it. I think I see a post from like Taylor on Reddit, literally being like, I built this thing. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So
You
I
should build a fantasy app with it.
exactly. Yeah, he was
It's a good
spot on.
idea.
He was spot on. Taylor, he's a very smart guy.
Yeah, he knew what the use case was.
He did. So I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I start getting into that. I start working with it for a couple more years. And then 2017, I get a job at Titan, which is like a big, Laravel focused company. And I start to get even more experience. And that's at the point where I finally go like, this idea that's been like percolating in my mind for 5 years now, I think I finally have the technical skill to build it. And then that's when the journey begins to building this thing. So yeah, that's the long, maybe too long story of the background of it, but that's where it came from.
No, it's good. It's great.
Yeah.
So the stack is Laravel, and what is is it just Blade, or what's the front end looking like?
Deep question, because it's changed so much. So
Okay. How did it start? Where is it now? How did it progress?
Yeah. So it's been interesting. One of the core things that I've tried to do with this side project specifically is like, I always have wanted it to be, because it's very old now, actually. I mean, it was built in 2017, 18. So now it's coming up on 7, 8 years old. But it's always been my personal goal that if anyone ever opened it, and no one other than me ever does, so it's kind of a useless thing. But like, I always wanted someone to be able to open this thing if they ever did and say, this looks like it was built this year. Like, this is fresh. I didn't want you to be able to see
North
the
Star.
trends.
I love that.
Yeah. So, back in 2017, when I first started building this thing, it's Laravel. It's pure. It's Laravel. It's Blade, and it's Vue. It's not.
Okay.
The Vue components like injected in certain parts where I have like a toggle or something like that.
Got it. Yeah.
And it's fine. It works. I kind of hate it because I'm like, there's certain things inside the Vue component that I want to use a Blade component in. I'm like, well, I can't. Now I got to like duplicate this Blade component to be in the Vue component too. I hate it, but Vue is just what I know at the time, right? So I'm like, okay, fair enough. What happens later is that the next year, Stimulus gets released. And if anyone doesn't know what Stimulus is like a front-end library that Basecamp I guess 37 Signals released.
Yes, it sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, I once wrote an extremely long, too long blog post on Titan that I don't think anyone ever read. Maybe my mom read it. I don't know. But like it's an extremely long, detailed guide on how to use stimulus. And so I got really into it for a minute because what I was looking for was something that wasn't a virtual DOM, but wasn't jQuery either. So that's what stimulus was at the time. So I'm like, okay, this new thing is out. I can get rid of Vue. So the second year, I refactor everything to stimulus on the front end. I'm like, okay, it's better, I think, than having Vue and Blade, but I also kind of hate it. Like it's kind of not, I don't like it. Like it's not for me, but I'm like, okay, it's all that's here. It's like either this or jQuery or whatever.
Yep.
So anyway, again, this is an interesting thing again, because it's seasonal. So like every time the show ends, I have 9 months to figure out what I'm doing for the next year,
It's pretty great, actually. It's, it's a cool business to run. I mean, or a side project to run, I guess.
Yeah, it's not bad. So like every year I'm kind of like, what am I changing this year? Like I'm going to rip the whole thing apart. So I do that. The third year, Caleb Porzio releases something called Project X, which later becomes Alpine JS. So I see that. And, I worked with Caleb at Titan for a little bit. I trust his vision and I know it's going to be great. So I go, before it's even really released, I'm like, okay, Project X. I refactor the whole front end once again from Stimulus to Project X and then later to Alpine, when he does the official release. And I'm like, okay, this feels great. I love this, blah, blah, blah. And it pretty much stays that way for a couple of years. There's some things that I'm still hacking together at that point. Like I think I'm using like Sweet Alert for modals, like triggered by Alpine, which I'm kind of like, this sucks. Like I don't like Sweet Alert. Well, Sweet Alert's fine, but I don't like having these different libraries, all different stuff. And
feels a little Frankenstein-y, yeah.
A little Frankenstein-y, yeah. And so I'm like, okay, but this is definitely like the best iteration of it so far. And then over time, Caleb releases Alpine component patterns, I forget what it's called. I think it was Alpine components.
Alpine UI or something, or is that it?
I don't know.
Is that later?
I don't know. It's Alpine components. He releases that. I start using that for like modals and stuff. And then long story short, when he finally releases Livewire 3, I'm like, this is the thing, because I don't want to have any JavaScript, but I just want to like use this. So the current stack of today is Laravel, obviously, Livewire on top of that, Alpine, Flux for components, for certain things like modals, dropdowns, all that kind of stuff. That's a new thing I've had it this year too. And Tailwind on the front end. And the beautiful thing about this project is that like it's not like extremely heavy JavaScript. I guess it's not like one of those apps where things are just flying around everywhere. But there's a lot of dropdowns, there's a lot of modals and stuff like that. But if you open up my app.js file, it's empty. Like it just has imports for like Alpine stuff, and that's it. And the rest of the app is all like in the Livewire, in the Blade. So that's the stack as of today, and it's by far my favorite thing to work in.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you currently have 50,000 users. What were there growing pains? Were there moments where you were like, was there any indication that you're like, I need to fix this part of it? Was there bottlenecks? Like, did anything come out of like scaling to 50,000 users? Because I assume during the 3 months, it's probably a pretty active user base, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are times on like premiere nights where we'll have thousands and thousands of active users like at one point in time. And now luckily, because of the way things work with time zones, a lot of that gets distributed unintentionally, because like people are watching in California 3 hours later. So I don't get like this huge global rush. I kind of get these little regional rushes. It's actually interesting. Like in terms of, there's definitely been moments where I think and I'm really not an IT ops person, frankly. So like, I don't always know like what I'm doing when I'm like buying these DigitalOcean boxes or whatever. There were certainly times in the beginning where the site would like on premiere night would like go down for a couple seconds and then come back up, like as it got overloaded with traffic. And, the way I basically addressed that was next time buying bigger servers, like instead of the $5 DigitalOcean box, I'm on like the $30 DigitalOcean box.
Right.
Obviously trying to fine tune the database queries as much as possible, composite indexes, all kinds of stuff like that to make sure that things are speedy and not taking up too much of the CPU or whatever. But luckily, I've never had an issue where it's like, oh my gosh, the entire site has been down for the whole day because it got so much killed with the traffic. I think the fact of the time zone issue really helps with that a lot.
Yeah, you got a little distribution there. That's nice.
Yeah, so in terms of like scaling, I've really just tried to add basic caching indexes wherever I can find them, and then just probably over provisioning the servers just a little bit, when needed. And that's it. But I haven't ever had a disaster story, thankfully. It's always been pretty stable.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of feedback? Do people like write in, contact you about this? Like, do you get feature requests? Like, is there any sort of like user communication on this?
Yeah, there's great stuff because for the most part, 50,000 users, which is crazy to me now thinking about it, because when I launched, I was like, if 100 people ever use this, that'll be kind of cool. And now it's 50,000 users, which is awesome. And yeah, people are The primary driver originally, and maybe to this day even, I don't know, maybe less so, was Reddit. So when I first did this, there's a Big Brother subreddit, and I posted there when it came out, and I was like, here's this thing I built, like, use it if you want. Those first couple of years especially, people would just leave comments on the Reddit posts and be like, most of the time, 5% of the time, people are very nice, and they'd be like, oh, this thing is cool, but like, why can't I do this or that?
But you said Reddit. That can't be true. That's...
Well, PHP Reddit is very different from TV Reddit. There's like a very distinct difference there.
Yeah, there's a line there probably.
And don't get me wrong, like I sometimes get emails where people are like, this is something upset about like the points or something like that. Like, this is ridiculous, and they're kind of mean about it. I don't take any of that to heart. It just kind of, I'm like, The good thing about this project is that, it's not managing payments. It's not doing anything important to the world, truly. And that's kind of why I love it, which is that, like, if it goes down, it goes down. And I don't really, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a game.
Right.
And now it's important to me that it's a good experience for the users. Like, I really try to have it not have problems. But at the end of the day, it's just a game. So I don't have to worry that someone's losing business or anything like that. It's just for fun. But yeah, I get emails, I get Reddit posts, I get DMs on Twitter and Blue Sky. I get all kinds of stuff. And honestly, man, some of the greatest things I've gotten some really great feedback that just made me stop in my tracks. So to give just a quick example, the first year when I launched this, when you're on this app, you have to like create leagues, and then you invite your friends to the league, and then you do a draft and you get points and stuff like that. And the first year that this happened, the invitation system I had set up was like, you'd have to like type your friend's email into the system, and it would send them an email and say, you're invited to this thing. And and it was just like, it was all I came up with at the time, but it was kind of bad because sometimes emails would fall through, for whatever reason, and people wouldn't be like, where's my invite? And then someone on Reddit at some point was just like, hey man, can you just like give us like a link to send to them? And I was like, how did I not think of that? Like what? Like I can't believe
the tunnel vision just falls away, and you're like, there it is,
like a link, a URL. Like how am I gonna think about this? And I was like, oh my god, this guy is totally right. And so not only did I updated that like right away, I removed like so much code because the email system was so much more complicated.
Of course.
And I was like, so I really try to read every bit of feedback I get, because you don't know when there's just some kind of hidden gem in there that you're just not thinking about.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you particularly enjoyed building when you were building this out, or things that you added that you enjoyed, like coding up or writing, or did anything stick out as like, that was fun, I would do that again, or I have fond memories of building out that feature or something?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, so many things. It's been a really fun project because I kind of like encapsulate certain parts of like, oh, this is this system or this is that system. One of the biggest ones is obviously the draft system. So, if you and I were in a league together, let's say there's 16 people on the season of Big Brother, we'd have to do this draft where each one of us would draft our players. So we'd each get 8 contestants. But there's an interesting thing that happens there where it's like, okay, we each have to do a draft, and there could be any amount of people in the league, up to like 16, basically, because there's 16 house guests on the show.
Right.
So I have to account for like, the entire draft system has to account for, okay, how many players does each person in the league have at any given time? Who's next in line to make their player? And then it also like zigzags back and forth. It's a snake draft. So it's like, if the draft order is 1, 2, 3, then once it hits 3, it goes back to 3, 2, 1. So like, it's keeping track of, okay, is the draft currently reversed? Are there enough people left to do another round? Like, let's say there's only 2 people left after round 3, but there's 3 people in the league. Well, there's not enough people to draft, so at that point it has to end early. You can't have 2 people with.
So they just go undrafted. They're just like, they don't. That's nothing. I don't know how this works. I have no sports knowledge. I have no fantasy league knowledge. I have nothing.
Yeah. So this is another one of those interesting things about football, which is different, which is in football, there's like hundreds of players. So there's always like these pickups. Big Brother, there's 16 every year, roughly. So currently, yes, those people will go undrafted. We did release a feature 2 years ago called swaps, which basically means you could drop a player off your roster and pick one up who was undrafted if you wanted that person instead. So that's kind of a way to mitigate it. And one of the features I've been working on this year, which I don't think we'll launch this year, but we'll launch soon after, is this concept of like multi-draft, which is that like, let's say there's 2 people left over, and then sometimes like a house gets added later in the season, like someone will come into the house.
Right.
So then all of a sudden a third would be available, and if you have 3 people in your league, technically you could pick up those 3. And so one of my goals long term is to have this thing where if somebody gets added to the show, it would start off a new draft, and then you could draft those people again and pick them up and stuff like that. So there's ways I've worked on mitigating it, but it's definitely a pain point because, again, it's not like football where you have hundreds of people playing. You've got your 16 options, and that's
super limited pool. Yeah.
Yeah. So the draft is interesting. The point system is extremely interesting because when I was building this around the first time, like the first year I did this, man, it was so, I had such limited experience with like just building apps in general. But I think the first time I wrote the app, like, when I talk about point system, I'm talking like, you draft your players, and then each week people do things that get you points, like they win something or other, and the person who has
Right,
that person
right.
gets the point. And then when you go to your league page, there's like a leaderboard which says like how many points this person has. And I think the first year I like, didn't know how to write the MySQL query to calculate that data. So
Yeah.
I literally like injected all of the stuff into the front end and parsed it with JavaScript to build that. I had these like
Yes,
hidden
dude.
divs. You know, I had these like hidden
Yes,
divs.
dude. That makes me happy. That's
It's
awesome.
horrible, right? But
Yeah.
like, and that's just I think a good example for anyone listening, which is like, you don't have to be an expert at all this stuff. You don't have to know
Yeah.
how to write this complicated query.
Just figure it out.
Just my users didn't care like how I
Yeah.
was doing it, right? It was whatever.
Ugh.
But now the point system is a lot different because it's all done with like these kind of sub queries. They kind of calculate everything that's going on. And that one's really complicated because of, again, that issue of time zones, which is that people are using this app all over the world and all over the country at the very least. And, you know, the problem is like, so here's an interesting thing about, and this is probably the most complicated part of the app that has also been one of the most fun things to work on, but also the most frustrating,
Yeah.
which is that, you know, every dev hates working with time zones. And this is what sparked that original Blue Sky post that I did
Right,
there.
right.
Every dev hates working with time zones, and this app is essentially all time zone driven because I can't spoil the show for people who are logging on in
Right.
like California.
Right.
So I have to account for time zones on a different places throughout the app. But the other interesting thing is that it's really weird conceptually because, like, for instance, Big Brother airs at 8 o'clock on Wednesdays, let's say, right? So you go, okay. In North and what would it be in Eastern time, Big Brother is on at 8 o'clock. You know, that's when it is. So that's when things happen. Well, in Central Time in Chicago, let's say, Big Brother's on at 7 p.m.
Right.
But that's the same moment in time.
Yes.
So like
Yes.
7 o'clock is 8 o'clock here. And then you go, okay, so now I'm not just dealing with time zones. I'm also dealing with time zones with almost this concept of like, okay, there's the time zone, but then there's now, like a point in time. And then you have a different situation, which is like in California, Big Brother is also on at 8 o'clock, just like in the Northeast, in the Eastern.
But it's 3 hours later.
3 hours later, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
you can't even think about it in the sense of like, you know, where is somebody? It's all about like what is happening, what is it right now, and what's happened relative to the current user. Because people
Yes.
from a league might be in 3 different locations; they can't all see the same thing. So I have to customize the experience per user, not only on what shows up on your league, but also how the points are calculated on the leaderboard.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff. It's really, really funky, but fun, but really funky too.
That's a cool challenge. That's very cool.
Yeah.
I used to work a long time ago at a CLE company. It's a continuing legal education company, and time zones were the bane of my existence because you had to make sure that they got their credits before their local midnight on certain dates, blah, blah, blah. And just like, you know, I just know too many things about time zones at this point that like I don't really need anymore, but like it's just always lodged in my brain. So that's fascinating. Would you say that sounds probably like the hardest part of the app, I would imagine, is like, that's pretty beefy.
Yeah, it's funny. It was something when I started building this app 7 years ago. I don't think the first year I even really thought about it very much. I was like, I just was thinking like, I live in Philadelphia. Okay, if anything happens, well, it's like a narcissistic way of thinking.
I'm
right?
the
Like,
center of the
I'm
universe.
the center of the universe. Like people
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
do things in other places.
Right.
And I think I realized like a month or two before the first year, like I was like, wait a minute, someone could look at this app in California, and if the show isn't premiered yet, they're going to get spoiled. And I had to suddenly do it. I mean, I've really refined it over time. Like the original version of it was very JavaScripty, very like reading the user's browser time zone or whatever, and being like, okay, let's hide this or that. And now it's become more complicated with like, you know, polymorphic tables and a bunch of really complicated subqueries to get the right data and stuff like that. I would say it's up there. I mean, the draft system is somewhat complicated, but this one's complicated technically, and it's also just kind of complicated conceptually. So it's a little bit of a double whammy. Like whenever I sit down to work on, I'm like, wait, I gotta like, wrap my head around like, what time is it? Where does this thing air in Chicago? Like, oh wait, is Chicago delayed because there was a golf game that went long, but Eastern Philadelphia isn't? So like, how do I account for that kind of thing? Because
So are you tracking TV schedules for this? Is
Sure
that what
am,
you're doing?
Joe. Sure am.
And are you like storing local air dates in like every time zone, basically?
You're exactly right. Yeah.
Whoa!
So
And then wait, this leads me to the question I really have, which is like, are you live watching and inputting data as you're watching? Is that basically what's happening?
I sure am.
Okay. So because I don't know anything about how fantasy leagues really work, so I think I know that in sports, like there are points attached to different things. So like number of touchdowns, like a certain plays happening, right? So it's like kind of attached to different actions. And then the same goes for the house, where like what gets you points? Like, what are the sorts of things that would like sway the points one way or the other?
Yeah, so it's very specific to Big Brother. So if someone doesn't know Big Brother, it might be tough to talk about. But like, so the way Big Brother kind of works format wise, real quick, is like, every week someone wins something called the head of household.
Okay.
Whoever wins that game, that kind of competition, they get into power for that week. Their job is to nominate 2 people for what they call the block. Those are the people who are at risk of going home. There's also midweek, there's a veto competition where the people who are nominated play to potentially win to get off of the block.
Okay.
If somebody wins that, they can take themselves down, and then the head of household has to replace that person with somebody else. And then at the end of the week, there's a vote by all the house guests about who gets evicted. And then there's 1,000 other things that happen throughout the season where there's like luxury competitions and special prize things and all kinds of stuff like that. But if you just kind of think about it at the highest, like most simple level, head of household gets you like 5 points. Winning the veto competition gets you 3 points. If you use the veto, you get an extra 2 points. If you're evicted, you actually don't lose any points because you've now lost a player on your roster. So you lose your player. So you don't lose any points for that.
All right.
But you do lose points for being nominated to be evicted. So you lose points there. So every season, there's probably about 30 different things that can happen that you either gain or lose points for.
Has Big Brother over the years like thrown curveballs in that forced you to change your app, like in terms of like the format of the show or the way that the system works, like where you were like, oh, I need to now account for this new aspect of the game?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
for sure. Joe, I live in fear. Let me tell you that. I'll tell you, like the show premieres next week, so this conversation is very timely because Big Brother premieres next Thursday.
Okay.
Premiere night is always the most stressful night because they always do some kind of wacky twist in the beginning to get people like engaged while they're watching, right?
And you're rapidly typing, just like trying to figure out how to incorporate it into the game.
I'm terrified because I'm like, what is this thing? What's the implication going to be? Sometimes they'll have competitions where someone will win, but the show doesn't even tell you exactly what they've won yet. So then I'm sitting there, I'm like, how do I point this? Like, I don't even know what this thing is yet. How many points is this worth if I don't know what this is?
Interesting.
Sometimes they've done wacky stuff where like, usually they've released the cast of the show a couple days before the premiere. Sometimes they'll release partially the cast and they'll be like, we're adding 4 people later. I'm like, well, people got to do their drafts now. Like, how do I deal
how does
with this
that work?
problem?
What do you do in those situations?
Luckily, typically what I've done, and it's luckily doesn't happen very often, but I'm in fear of it happening again next week. But like when it happens, I basically start the drafts early and I say, look, if whoever wants to do the draft now before they get added, they can do one. And then we'll add them after the premiere. And if people want to wait till after the premiere, they're welcome to. But like, unfortunately, my hands are a little bit tied. This is all in my hands. So I just kind of roll with the punches as best as I can. But boy, it's definitely, I'm not in control of any of this stuff, and it's not a consistent game year to year. Sometimes there's major structural changes. So I just try to make the system as flexible as possible so that I can kind of roll with it as it goes.
So like your point system must be like kind of fairly abstract so it can like just adapt to whatever's happening at any given time. I don't know. The fact that you're building a game around a game and you have no control over the base game is like a little stressful to me, but also very exciting because it's also a live internet moment, which doesn't really happen anymore as often as it used to, right? So like people are watching it probably pretty live, and then they are like tracking their own points and seeing how they're doing in their league pretty live. Like that's amazing. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, it creates a lot of interesting problems for sure. Like it's interesting, but that's why I love it, because when I built this, and I keep saying me, I'm saying me because I'm the one talking now, but my wife and I worked on this together. She's also a software engineer.
Well, amazing.
And she's
That's
also
cool.
a designer. So I've done pretty much all of the coding, but my wife is a really talented designer and she's also a really talented front-end developer. So she did the original kind of UI designs for the app, which I get compliments all the time. It would look so much worse if I did it. I'm a terrible designer, but she's great.
You and me both.
And she also comes in occasionally when I'm like, this animation needs to look better on the homepage. She'll come in and work on that too. So
yeah.
Anyway, I'm saying that, but yeah, the whole point why we kind of built this originally was like, I wanted to create like a fun family experience for people. And like, when you're watching the show, the commercial comes on, you're opening up Twitter, you're seeing terrible things happening. You're like, oh man, the world sucks. And then you're like, back to Big Brother. Yep. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if on the commercial break, you could open your phone and do something related to the show? Like you could see like, oh, dad won 10 points for this thing. Oh, now he's ahead of this person. He's like, that could be maybe something that would enrich the viewing experience rather than you falling into this like despair over like what's happening on the news.
100%.
Right? So that was kind of the main driver originally. It was like, this would be fun, for people to do.
So I saw I think it's called, is it Off Red? Is that the company that is like the company that's behind this app?
Yeah, so
Is that you and your wife?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
That's
Offred
awesome.
is an LLC that we have. It's the website is super outdated. It has like stuff from like 8 years ago. It's really just a legal thing that we made to
Yep.
have an LLC.
We all have
yeah,
legal things that we made.
all have them. Yeah. But yeah, that's the company technically behind it. That's me and my wife together. We've worked on other projects over the years that have, not really most of them really haven't launched, but this is the main one we focused on. But yeah, the idea was that this would be the kind of our product suite on Offred.
I like it. I like it. So you have a relaunch of this coming up, or is it already relaunched?
No, it'll launch next week.
Okay. What's new and exciting in the relaunch?
Biggest year yet, because and this nobody knows this yet actually, except for me and my wife, really. So this is an exclusive for you, Joe.
I'm getting a scoop right now.
Yeah. By the time I don't know when this podcast will come out, but it'll probably, I assume, come out after the show starts. But if not, it's not a big deal. But
I can if you want. I can hold it. If
it doesn't matter.
Nobody listens to this. Don't worry about it.
No. I mean, just the people who listen to this probably don't watch Big Brother, so I'm not worried about.
You might be surprised. I mean, I might be in the outside group on this one. But anyway, so go ahead.
Yeah. So we are changing the name. So it's been FantasyBB for the last 7 years.
Okay.
We are rebranding this year as TellyDraft. So
TellyDraft.
TellyDraft.com is going to be the new domain name. And the main purpose of the rebrand was that we're expanding to additional shows. So
amazing.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've gotten from beginning from people literally 7 years ago was like, this is great. Can I also use it for Survivor or The Challenge or whatever 1,000 other shows there are? So in the last 9 months, I basically spent the time actoring the system it was built for really just one show. And so I had to re-architect the entire thing to be a feature I call multi-show, which essentially now it can be, you could have one for Survivor, you could have one for Big Brother, you could have one for The Challenge, whatever it may be. And we're starting with Survivor. We're going to launch for Survivor 49, which I think premieres this fall.
Amazing.
And then, we'll see how that goes because I'm also having a baby in August. Might be tough to expand this thing right now. But we're going to see how it goes. And I'm going to just try with Survivor. And, the fans have been asking for that one specifically for a long time. So we're going to try that one out. And, if it goes terribly, if it drives me crazy, I'll just go back to Big Brother. But my hope is that over time, maybe it could expand to, I watch a lot of TV, so I can keep doing this for all kinds of shows.
I mean, it seems like a good template to just sort of like shift over to other shows. Was it hard to rework the app to accommodate other shows? I mean, at that point, you're just kind of like white labeling shows, it sounds like ish.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I'd say this, when I first put the app out, I made things as abstracted as I could. Like, in Big Brother, the people who play the game are called house guests. But in the database, I just have them called contestants because that's more of a global thing. So even from the beginning, I kind of had an inkling that maybe one day this could happen, maybe.
Yeah.
And so I tried to make things like as nasty as I could. So a lot of it actually wasn't too hard, but I had to obviously redo the whole branding on it. It can't be Big Brother focused branding anymore. I had I wanted to make sure that like every time if we were using Survivor versus Big Brother, that the entire app had like a different color palette to reflect those shows. So like that was an interesting experiment, like Tailwind, using like the custom variable overrides and stuff like that for each show. Yeah. So there was some like front end. Well, honestly, the challenges were mostly front end based rather than back end based.
So you had kind of already architected it with that potentially in mind as you were building that initially.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have the concept of shows, but that was I had the concept of like seasons, right? Because each show has seasons. And so it was like, I added like a shows table and then I had like a show ID column to the season. And a lot of it kind of trickled down from there because I built it in a way that was very abstractable. So I was like, oh, this is actually not that hard at all. The way harder part was like, recording the new demo videos because I can't use the old layout anymore and it's not Big Brother focused. And so there was a lot of like outside work, but no, it wasn't too challenging overall, surprisingly, compared to like things like time zones and stuff, it wasn't too bad.
So you're expanding out. Can I, like, if I signed up for the site, I can have a league that's related to any of the shows that you offer? Like, that's the way it's going to be now? Like, I don't need separate accounts. It's one site for all the leagues that I have. And then the branding changes depending on like the view that I'm in.
Yeah. So it'll be like, yeah, that's right. I mean, it'll be like bigbrother.teledraft.com, survivor.teledraft.com. So we use these like subdomains to divide it up. So whatever one you're on, we pick up like, you're on the Big Brother subdomain, let's make it blue. You're on Survivor, let's make it green.
Is it the same accounts though? You're using the same accounts?
All the same database, all the same accounts. So it's one login, everything like that. And your leagues will,
awesome.
they're all in the same database. So it's all really the same, but we kind of just like hide things based on where you are. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward and I'm hoping that people really like it when it comes out.
I think it's a great idea. Not to sully this with capitalism, but are you ever planning on monetizing this?
Man, it's a tough question. I mean, so the flat answer is that I've always wanted to make sure that no matter what happens with this thing long term, that people and their families can sign up and play this for free. in some way,
Yep.
shape, or form. So like I never wanted
Yep.
to be like, I want to play this game with my grandma. Oh, it's $2. Like that's, you know, that's annoying. So it'll always be what it is now. I hope I want it to always be free. Is there a chance that in the future I could add some paid features or something like that? Maybe. Yeah, I've considered it. But I don't even have any ads on there right now. Like this thing makes no money. It could probably make some decent money because it has a lot of visitors on it. I've never put ads on there. I've never charged for anything. To me, it's like if you're trying to play something with your mom and your dad and your sister or whatever, and then you go on and it's like ads everywhere and it's, I have to pay $1.99 or whatever. I just thought like, I wanted to keep it as simple and as clean as I could and really just for like the love of the game. Like it's really, truly like a passion thing for me where it's like, it was my gift to like the fan community. And so I didn't want to take out the wallet at that point. And so could things change at one point? Maybe, or maybe if it got too much, I would just shut it down or something. I don't know what would happen, but right now it's free and it will be free for the foreseeable future.
That's the right answer. That was a trick question and you did it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, it's, you know, I feel like once you get to that number of users, I'll speak for my own, but like it seems tempting to be like, how can I at least let it pay for itself? Or like, how can I cover costs or, you know, yeah, fascinating. Anything else you want to tell me about this project? I mean, like it's a pretty fascinating project. I would imagine like the data structure is sort of interesting. The interaction is pretty interesting. Like it's a cool project. Is there anything that we missed that you want to touch on?
Let me think. We covered drafts. There's a ton of things that are involved in it. Like I mentioned, the swap system. There's also a trading system. So you can propose trades between players. If, you know, you have person A and I have person B and I want to swap them or whatever.
Right.
Trade them essentially. You can do that. And there's interesting stuff there because everything is really based on like time. So like who had this person at this given point in time to determine who gets the points.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's complicated, right? Because there's like historical stuff too, where you can go back. You could trade maybe even midweek or something, but then who gets so you got to figure all that out. It's some interesting stuff.
Well, like, okay, can I, if I'm in New York and my friend is in California and I watch the show and then propose a trade, can I do that? Like trade before they've seen the show, basically? Or is there like a dark period where you can't trade? So
it's so interesting. There's a whole other like thing here, which is that one of the things that was tough was that when I was thinking about this, I had to think about like how this thing is actually very different from football. And with football, you can do, I think, like midweek trades and stuff like that, doesn't matter. But with this one, you know, the episodes air 3 times a week. So, and there's also the live feed. Yeah, it's thrown 3 times a week. And then there's also the live feed component. So there's some people who know things way in advance because they're watching the live feeds on the internet. So they see what's happening.
You mean like a live feed of the house?
Live feed 24/7 in the house. You can come on anytime. So there's things to consider there. But basically with like things in trades and swaps work, I basically process them all at the end of the week. So like after somebody gets evicted from the house, there's some queued jobs that run that basically process all the trades and all the swaps and move people around in the rosters. And that's to basically kind of as a safety guard so that someone who is watching the feeds doesn't make a trade based on someone they know is about to win something, you know, and then it gets, you know, you trick somebody who isn't watching the feeds. And the beautiful thing about that is that even though technically that trade is getting processed like at the end of the, you know, eviction at like maybe 9 p.m. Eastern, based on all the other time zone logic we're doing, the people who are watching in California, they don't see it yet. It doesn't.
Right.
When they come onto the app, it still looks like they have that player and the points haven't happened yet, so they don't see who got what. And so because everything is so calculated based on where you are and where you're watching from, it all kind of works even though things are technically different behind the scenes. Literally almost everything in this app that's important is time-based. It's really critical to be.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's a really specific challenge. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay. Well, we're at about the 45-minute mark.
Yeah.
This was awesome. And I kind of, you know, I think maybe when you relaunch and like you get into it, we can check back in and see how it's working and like what the challenges have been and like, you know, if it'll stick around. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you? Where do you want to point them on the internet?
Yeah, they don't have to find me. It's okay. I'm on Blue Sky and stuff, but who cares?
Don't even look for him.
Don't look for me. Don't follow me. You're not going to like it. You know, it's fine. If you
John's
like me, brother...
John's a good follow. I enjoy following
John. Good. I'm glad you like it. It's just for you. I just tweet for you. That's all it is.
Perfect.
No, I mean, look, if you're into Big Brother or Survivor, check out TellyDraft.com when it comes out. And, you know, do around. Let me know if you have any feedback and stuff like that. But yeah, otherwise, Joe, thanks for having me. Hey, I got to ask you a question. Yeah. I feel like the person who's always throwing people surprise parties, they want a surprise party themselves. And so listening to this podcast, when are you going to talk about who's going to talk to you about what's going on in your side projects?
That's a good question.
You should do it.
I actually have one that I'm working on that is I've been dog fooding for a while now. And I was like, just have a conversation with myself about this project. So I might recruit somebody to just be like, can you just ask me questions about this on my own podcast? Yeah, we'll see. I was thinking about that literally yesterday.
As a listener, I've been like, well, when's Joe going to talk about his stuff? So I'd be curious to
I
hear.
mean, these days I don't have a lot of time for side projects between kid and job, but I do have one that's cooking that's been fun. So, and it's been successful and for myself. So we'll see if I decide to put it out to more people.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it.
Okay. I'll keep you posted.
Thanks, man.
Dude, thank you so much. Pleasure having you on.
Pleasure. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.